Hey, Robin.
Good morning, and thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for coming. I'm going to tell a little bit about you, and then we'll move into some questions.
Sure.
During this session, we would love to spotlight questions from the audience. And if you would like to send in any questions, you can just send them in the chat to the host, and we'll try and get them in, and we will spotlight you to ask your questions just to have us all get to know each other. So Robin Gaster is president of Incumetrics and author of Behemoth, Amazon Rising, Power and Seduction in the Age of Amazon. Incumetrics is a consulting company focused on measuring and evaluating innovation and innovation programs. The book about Amazon dissects Amazon's 5 interlocking moats: logistics, Amazon Prime, Amazon Marketplace, low prices, and constant innovation, and explains how Amazon enters and then dominates new sectors. In addition to his corporate work, Robin is a visiting scholar at George Washington University. And where do I have it, Robin? I want to talk about you got your undergraduate degree at Oxford, right? I have that somewhere. I don't know where
Yep.
to tell about your degrees, because I seem
Yeah, I have an undergraduate degree from Oxford and a PhD from Berkeley. That's the short version.
So let's why is Amazon so powerful and successful? Let's start with that.
I think you have to understand that Amazon is a very different animal than most companies. Yeah, I'm not usually one for cultural explanations, but you have to start there with Amazon. I think every large organization in the world now has the word customer somewhere in its mission statement. But Amazon is best understood as an organization that has a singular mission. And it's like other mission-driven entities. It's not like a normal corporation. It's much more like the Jesuits or the Marines, as an entity in which there is one mission, which is to satisfy the customer, and everything else flows from that. So that's the starting point. But I think the other thing to think about at Amazon is that it is really an ecology. It's a set of interlocking pieces that all work together. So yes, you have the culture and the customer obsession, but you have these pieces that fit. So you have the marketplace, which we're going to talk about more, which is a way of ensuring that your competitors work for you. That's a really interesting trick if you can manage it, and they've managed it. They invented Prime, Amazon Prime. I imagine that in this audience, more than 90% of you are Prime members. That's an astounding success. You're locked into the Amazon ecosystem. You have become part of their world moving forward. So, and I think we're going to talk more about innovation as well. Amazon is very unusually successful and agile innovator, and there are reasons for that.
Let's start by talking about how Amazon started, because they started as an online book publisher, right, in 1994, I think.
Yes. 1995. So the book story is a fascinating one. I know almost none of you are in the book business, but 25 years ago, the book business was dominated by publishers and large chain bookstores like Barnes & Noble and Borders. And it was dominated for a simple reason, that bookstores could only carry a small number of books, 20,000 books maximum. So somebody had to decide whose books were going to be carried, and that was the publishers. Publishers dominated the ecosystem. If you wanted to be a published author, you had to get to a publisher, and to do that, you had to have an agent. So the publishers were the gatekeepers into the sort of golden garden of publishing. The big chain bookstores were big enough to provide a counterweight, but all the center of gravity in the industry was in the publishers and had been for 100 years. So in 15 years, Amazon completely upended that. It turned it on its head. Today, if you want to publish a book, you can do so. You can do so on Amazon using Amazon technology and distributed worldwide by Amazon online. There is no more gatekeeper at the front of the bookstore.
I remember, in its early days, the complaint on Wall Street was that Amazon didn't care about profits. That was always the complaint about.
Yeah.
And that's maybe how they invaded. Like, how does that play into what they do now?
Well, two things. That's a really good question. So first, I think we've all, or those of us who have sort of even moderately tracked Amazon, have come to understand where those early profits went. They went into the warehouses. Amazon decided around 2000 to take an enormous leap of faith. And this is, this goes to the innovation point. 20 years ago, Amazon's distribution system was collapsing under pressure from demand. They were being very successful, but they couldn't handle it. And I think any of you who've read anything in the business management world would have come to the obvious conclusion. This is not a core function. We should outsource it. We should give it to UPS or the post office or someone else to do this, and we'll focus on selling books. And Amazon didn't do that. They spent 20 years building the equivalent of UPS, building the biggest and best parcel delivery system in America. So that's where the money went. But now what they have is an extraordinary logistics advantage that no competitor can match. So they spent this time and money. So that's part of the answer. The second answer is, I think, even more important and possibly more relevant to here. Amazon adopted low everyday prices about the same time, around 2000, 2001. But what they've done is built an ecosystem model of pricing. So we can understand retail. You buy something and you sell it for a little bit more, and that's your margin, and that's how it works. That's not how Amazon works. Amazon buys something and sells it for less than it bought. It makes a loss, an apparent loss on its retail business. And it makes it up with a very strong advertising business, with Prime, with AWS, its cloud business. So what it has is a constant flow of revenues from different sources, diversified sources, that allow it to underprice in any market that it chooses to. And Amazon is, at one point, very famously, Jeff Bezos said, "Your margin is my opportunity." This is a terrifying statement. It means that anybody with a margin, anybody making a profit in any business is a target. And we're about to see Amazon enter healthcare in a big way and grocery in a big way to prove that. But I think actually this understates the problem. Bezos didn't really mean that. What he meant was, your revenue is my opportunity. If you are sufficiently big to be making serious revenue, then you're a target, and you better be prepared.
I'm going to pull in a spotlight question. We've got Martin from University of Guelph. Martin, go ahead.
Okay, so you mentioned that it's a very customer-centric model where sort of extrapolating from what you said, they make it easy for the customer to give them money. And that's sort of the relationship that people have with Amazon. But realistically, is the customer the goal or the means? Because Jeff Bezos famously expressly said in the 1990s that he's going to, Amazon is going to take over the world. And, this was a public statement he made right around 1998, I think. And so, we know where this strategy started and how it's progressing. And, you mentioned the the lack of a profit, and the slow growth, the sort of long-term model, where's it going to go? I mean, what is the goal? Is it really to become, for all of us old enough to remember Mad Max, the Zigzag Corporation of,
Yeah. Well, it's very hard. Let me sort of turn it upside down. You've put your finger on something really important. If you look at the other big corporations around the world, they have kind of natural limits. I mean, they're involved, they have a core business, or if they're GE, they have 3 core businesses or something, but even GE is now retrenching quite rapidly. They have a core business and they may innovate, they may expand in areas around their core business. But it seems to me that Amazon just has no natural limits. The notion of being customer obsessed is powerful, but there are customers everywhere in every business. And I see no natural limit. I do think Amazon is going to make a huge push into healthcare, but they're pushing everywhere. Any place that they see an opportunity, because of the internal structuring of Amazon that allows small teams to move into new areas quickly and see what traction they can get and move on. It's a very powerful structure for doing a lot very quickly. And taking over the world, well, they want to serve customers, and you as a customer have needs in all the goods that they sell you now, all the entertainment they provide you now, but also the healthcare, the groceries, the financial services, the insurance. I see no limit.
You mentioned these small teams. Let's talk about how they innovate, because it's hard for big companies to innovate, but they seem to do it better than most. How do they do that?
I think there are different pieces to this. And again, people have tried to sort of pull out individual pieces of the puzzle, but I think it's the way it fits together. Again, there is culture. The leadership principles, which I recommend you look up, do actually matter at Amazon and are used as ways to decide arguments. It's a very data-driven company, so in conjunction with culture, data really helps. They have developed some very interesting processes for organizing their innovation. I'll mention a couple. It's well known that at Amazon, innovation starts with the press release for the product. Think about the importance of this. You are starting with what is the benefit to the customer. This is the exact opposite of technology push innovation, where you invent a better mousetrap and then try and figure out how you're going to sell it to the customer. This is customer first. Figure out exactly what the benefit is and work backwards from that. But Amazon does other things that are behind the scenes that are equally or more powerful. I'm not a great man theory of history guy. I don't think history turns on great men, but I do think Bezos is extremely unusual and visionary. So 20 years ago, when Amazon introduced this team-oriented small teams, hundreds and possibly now thousands of small teams, these teams cannot operate in the world of email. It takes too long. The information overhead of connecting these teams would drown all of them. But 20 years ago, Bezos published a memo which said that every team on Amazon had to publish all of its data and all of its resources to be available by API, by electronically. and automatically. So you don't need permission to access that data. You don't need permission to see what resources are available and figure out how to use them. This makes it possible for a huge, highly disaggregated company to lurch forward into the future faster than the rest of us. I also, I mentioned the teams. Every company works in teams now, but Amazon pays a lot of attention to how teams work, how they're built, and how they're formed. And I go into this in considerable detail in one chapter of my book. I recommend you read it, of course. I'd also say Amazon has resources, and I think, as other speakers have mentioned, I think Amazon takes seriously the notion that you do have to fail. I do a fair amount of work for the federal government looking at innovation programs, and it's hard to persuade bureaucrats that if your program is 90% successful, you are not being innovative enough. It's simply not, you're not at the cutting edge. You have to fail more. So Amazon seems to be well aware of that and well prepared to do that. So you have all these different pieces. You also have Amazon's selection process. Amazon is like the Jesuits and the Marines. They'll let a fair number of people in the door, but they only keep a few. They only keep the ones who truly buy into the Amazon ethos. It's notable how long their senior management has been there. Andy Jassy just took over for Bezos. He's been there more than 20 years.
So let's talk about, just because we're talking about industrial tech today, I've talked about Amazon's Monitron package where they're putting them into what I find interesting about it, one of the big things about it is they put sensors on motors. Explain kind of how that, they're just giving you a little box of sensors and you put them on motors in your factory. Why is that sneaky?
Not really. Well, Amazon does understand the power of platforms and the power of using other people's energy and innovation to build an empire, right? Amazon started as a retailer like everybody else, but they discovered that they were never themselves going to be the everything store that they wanted to be. So they, again, did something quite unusual. And if we bring it back to sort of industrial manufacturing, the model has traditionally been that you build something great, you make it proprietary, you lock in your customers, and you then work with them to improve it. But the key thing is to lock them in and to keep everybody else out. And Amazon's model is different. Yes, they do some of that. Of course, AWS wants to keep Asia out. But AWS does that by building a platform on which many other providers can offer services. And they can do it because they're connected, right? It has to be connected. You could not do that in an analog world where you would need 800 people visiting your factory from each of those possible helpers. Digitally, you can make it possible for more people to visit the factory and see the opportunity to build new services. Amazon takes its tax on those services, but really what it's doing is building the ecosystem so that it's not that you're just using AWS, you're using all of the partners and service providers who operate using AWS, right? So you have to own the platform. It's the platform that multiplies your strength. And I think the big industrial companies are in very good position to do this. They do currently own the customer. They do currently have trust, but it is going to be a pretty long way from traditional manufacturing to platform-based ecologies.
So, but you said Amazon has to own the platform, but they don't own the platform in the factories right now. They're just selling these little boxes with sensors and will tell you how your motor's working. Why is that kind of a way in for them? How do
Hmm.
they get to a platform from that?
Uh, well, connecting the sensors electronically means that it's opened a door in the vault, if you like. It's a door into the factory. There's no other door. I mean, the other doors are all controlled by traditional manufacturers, and so it it may not be apparent yet, and it may not be apparent even for 5 years, but it seems to me that eventually connected sensors are the future. And once you connect the sensor, then you connect the sensor to other providers. And your choice really as a big manufacturer is to say, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to allow other providers to provide services using into our customers. And I think if you do that, you face the possibility that Amazon will use its pricing power. It will underprice. It will provide these wedge tools and services at minimal cost, because what it's doing is building a platform. Does that make sense?
Well, so how do you compete with that? What can you do if
Mm-hmm.
open the door and they've got the clouds, so they've got an advantage because they can connect everything and do the analytics on it, right?
Well, yes and no. They don't know very much about that business, right? It's Rockwell's business or the big automation company's business. It's not Amazon's business. Amazon just knows that it can buy things and sell things, and so leveraging that industrial expertise to provide services to customers is an alternative pathway, being the source of expertise that you already are. I mean, right now, the existing dominant players have all the expertise. I do think that figuring out ways to add services and integrate services and products is a way to go, because Amazon doesn't do services. Amazon is a mass market company. They look for that sweet spot where they can sell product and build a simple platform that can then expand in the future. I would say that one has to be wary about price. That's Amazon's real leverage. And the big companies will need to find ways to react quickly in a quickly and in an effective way using their existing muscle. They have muscle in this market. In the end, they have to be prepared to innovate and have to be prepared to take some risks to build platforms for themselves. If you can find other great services to operate on your platform on good terms, you have a win. And even if you don't take all of the revenues from your customers, what you're doing is embedding yourself in your customers in a deep way that Amazon really won't match and can't match.
Right, platform.
Yeah, so a digital platform. So, you pointed out the importance of analytics and the importance of, it's obvious that remote sensors and, sensors by drones and so forth are coming. My brother's in that business and it's booming. That, things that used to be done by direct inspection are being done remotely now. And that offers the opportunity for better predictive analytics, which is because of the existing installed base. The existing players have a big advantage. They have more data if they can just get it out and figure out how to use it and share it, perhaps. So I would say that the future, the future of sensors is absolutely networked sensors. And network sensors offer the opportunity for better analytics. And if the existing players don't do that, you can be pretty sure that Amazon will.